Beloved friends, I wish to speak to you today about a phenomenon of your modern age that reveals much about the inner life of the soul. In this era of constant connection, where millions share their every thought and movement with the world through what you call social media, there exists a quieter group, those who choose silence, who observe but do not participate, who read but do not write. These souls, often misunderstood by their more vocal contemporaries, possess a psychology worthy of our deepest contemplation. You see, dear ones, the human heart has always sought expression. From the ancient cave paintings to the letters of saints, from the songs of troubadours to the diaries kept in candlelight, humanity has yearned to say, I am here, I exist, I matter. But the soul that refrains from broadcasting its existence through these modern channels is not necessarily silent. It is selective. It has chosen a different path of expression, one that often runs deeper than the surface streams of constant sharing. Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, give me a like, comment below about your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the video about real psychology like this. When I observe those who abstain from social media participation, I see in them a reflection of the ancient contemplatives, the forest dwellers who withdrew not from hatred of the world, but from love of truth. These modern silent ones are not necessarily hermits or misanthropes. Many live full, rich lives surrounded by loved ones. They laugh, they work, they contribute to their communities. But they have made a conscious or unconscious decision that their inner life need not be displayed for public consumption. The psychology of such individuals often reveals a profound relationship with authenticity. You must understand, my dear friends, that when we constantly perform our lives for an audience, we risk losing touch with the genuine experience of living. The person who does not post on social media often possesses an acute awareness of this danger. They sense, perhaps without articulating it fully, that the moment we begin to live for the photograph, for the clever caption, for the approval of others, we step outside the present moment and into a hall of mirrors where nothing is quite real. These individuals frequently demonstrate what I would call an internal locus of validation. They do not require the constant affirmation of likes, comments, and shares to know their worth. Their sense of self is not constructed from the reflected opinions of hundreds or thousands of acquaintances and strangers. Instead, they have cultivated, whether deliberately or naturally, an inner compass that guides them. They know who they are without needing the world to tell them. This is not to say, beloved ones, that they are perfect or enlightened beings. No, they too struggle with ego, with insecurity, with the desire for recognition. But their struggle takes a different form. Where the active social media user might seek validation through public performance, the non-poster often grapples with questions of relevance and connection in private. They may wonder if their silence makes them invisible, if their refusal to participate leaves them disconnected from the currents of modern life. I have observed that many who abstain from social media posting possess a heightened sensitivity to the ephemeral nature of attention. They recognize that the applause of the crowd is fleeting, that today's celebrated post is tomorrow's forgotten scroll. This awareness, while sometimes tinged with cynicism, often springs from a deeper wisdom, an understanding that lasting fulfillment cannot be found in the temporary approval of others. They seek something more permanent, more substantial, though they may not always know what that something is. There is also, dear friends, a quality of psychological self-protection in this choice. The person who does not post has erected boundaries around their inner world. They understand, consciously or unconsciously, that once something is shared publicly, it no longer belongs entirely to them. It becomes subject to interpretation, judgment, and misunderstanding. The private joy shared becomes public property. The personal struggle becomes entertainment. The intimate moment becomes performance. These souls often value privacy not as secrecy but as sacred space. They recognize that some experiences lose their power when exposed to the harsh light of public scrutiny. The sunset is more beautiful when experienced fully rather than photographed anxiously. The conversation with a friend is more meaningful when it is not simultaneously being crafted into a shareable anecdote. The achievement is more satisfying when it is savored privately before being announced to the world. I must tell you, however, that the psychology of the non-poster is not monolithic. Some abstain from a place of fear of judgment, fear of vulnerability, fear of not measuring up to the carefully curated lives they see others displaying. These individuals may long to participate but feel paralyzed by perfectionism or anxiety. They compare their behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel and find themselves wanting. Their silence is not chosen freely but imposed by their own harsh inner critic. Others refrain from posting out of a kind of intellectual superiority, a belief that they are above such trivial pursuits. This too is a form of ego, dear ones, though it masquerades as wisdom. These individuals may judge those who do participate, feeling smugly satisfied in their own restraint. But this judgment reveals that they are still very much concerned with social media. They have simply chosen to define themselves in opposition to it rather than through participation in it. Then there are those, and these are perhaps the most interesting from a spiritual perspective, who simply do not feel the pull toward self-broadcast. For them, the absence from social media is not a statement or a struggle but simply a natural expression of their temperament. They are the true contemplatives of the digital age, the ones who have not rejected technology but have integrated it in a way that serves their deeper nature rather than controlling it. These individuals often possess what we might call a rich inner life. They are readers, thinkers, observers. They find satisfaction in depth rather than breadth, in quality rather than quantity. They would rather have one meaningful conversation than 100 superficial interactions. They would rather fully experience one beautiful moment than capture and share a dozen. Their psychology is oriented inward, not from fear or superiority, but from genuine preference. I want you to understand, beloved friends, that there is also often a temporal dimension to the psychology of non-posters. Many of these individuals have a different relationship with time than their more active counterparts. They resist the tyranny of the immediate, the pressure to respond instantly, to share in real time, to be always available and always performing. They recognize that not everything needs to be documented as it happens, that some experiences benefit from the passage of time, from reflection and integration before they are shared, if they are shared at all. This relationship with time often extends to a broader philosophy about life's pace. The non-poster frequently resists the acceleration of modern existence. They are uncomfortable with the way social media compresses experience, turning complex emotions into emoji reactions, nuanced thoughts into character-limited posts, and meaningful relationships into follower counts. Their abstention is sometimes a quiet rebellion against this compression, an insistence that life deserves to be lived at a more human pace. There is also, I must note, an element of what we might call psychological sovereignty in the choice not to post. These individuals resist being algorithmically categorized, tracked, and targeted. They are uncomfortable with the idea that their preferences, their relationships, their very thoughts are being harvested as data. This discomfort may not always be articulated in such terms, but it manifests as a general unease with the bargain that social media requires, the exchange of privacy and autonomy for connection and visibility. Many non-posters also demonstrate a keen awareness of the addictive nature of social media. They have perhaps experimented with posting in the past and found themselves checking obsessively for responses, feeling their mood rise and fall with the metrics of engagement. They recognized in themselves the beginning of a dependency and chose to step back before it took hold. This is a form of psychological wisdom, dear ones, the ability to recognize when something that appears harmless is actually beginning to control you. I have also observed that those who abstain from social media often possess a strong sense of personal narrative integrity. They are uncomfortable with the way social media fragments identity, presenting different versions of the self to different audiences, constantly updating and revising the story of who we are. They prefer a more coherent, integrated sense of self, one that is not constantly being rewritten for public consumption. Their identity is something they live into rather than something they perform. Yet we must also acknowledge, beloved friends, that some non-posters struggle with a sense of disconnection in this modern age. They may feel left out of conversations, unaware of events, distant from friends who have moved their social lives primarily online. This is a real cost of their choice, and it can lead to feelings of isolation or irrelevance. The psychology of the non-poster often includes a tension between the desire for authentic connection and the recognition that much of modern connection happens through channels they have chosen not to use. There is also frequently a creative dimension to the psychology of those who do not post. Many are artists, writers, or thinkers who have recognized that the constant outward flow of energy required by social media depletes the inner reservoir from which creativity springs. They have learned that the creative process requires periods of silence, of gestation, of privacy. They cannot afford to give away their observations and insights in small daily doses. They need to let them accumulate and ferment into something more substantial. These individuals often understand that creativity requires a certain amount of boredom, of empty space, of unstructured time. Social media, with its endless scroll and constant stimulation, eliminates this necessary emptiness. The non-poster who is creatively inclined has often made a deliberate choice to protect their mental space, to preserve the quiet that allows new ideas to emerge. I must also speak to you about the relationship between non-posting and authenticity. Many who abstain from social media have become acutely aware of the gap between lived experience and performed experience. They have noticed how the presence of an audience changes behavior, how we begin to live for the story we will tell rather than for the experience itself. They have chosen authenticity over performance, even if it means their authentic life is less visible to others. This choice often reflects a deeper spiritual understanding, though the individual may not frame it in spiritual terms. It is the recognition that the true self cannot be captured in posts and images, that our deepest nature is not something that can be displayed but only lived. The non-poster often intuitively understands what the mystics have always taught, that the most important aspects of human existence are invisible, interior, and ultimately incommunicable. Dear ones, as we conclude this exploration, I want you to understand that I am not suggesting that posting on social media is wrong or that abstaining is right. The spiritual path is not about such simple judgments. Rather, I am inviting you to look deeply at the psychology of those who choose silence in an age of noise, privacy in an age of exposure, depth in an age of surface. Whether you are someone who posts regularly or someone who observes from the sidelines, the invitation is the same: to become conscious of your choices, to understand the psychology that drives your behavior, and to ensure that your relationship with these powerful tools serves your highest self rather than your smallest fears or your most superficial desires. The non-poster has something to teach us about the value of inner life, of authentic experience, of living for something beyond the approval of others. And those who do post mindfully and authentically have something to teach us about connection, generosity, and the courage to be visible. The question is not whether to post or not to post, but whether we are living consciously, whether we are making choices that align with our deepest values, and whether we are cultivating the kind of inner richness that makes life worth living, whether or not anyone else ever sees it.